everyone says that you got to be in the playoff picture by American Thanksgiving. And why do they say that? Is it just a simple made up? Well, why don't they say Christmas or Easter or Ash Wednesday or Mother's Day? Well, Mother's Day would be after the season ends, but you know what I'm saying. Why American Thanksgiving? Well, generally within reason, the American Thanksgiving marks the quarter mark of the season. And yes, some teams have played as few as 17 games, 15 games actually. What the heck? How come Ottawa's only played 15 games? 15 games, whereas Seattle Kraken have played the most games in the entire league at 21, and the Canucks are right behind them in 20. And so I get it. It's not the easiest thing to compare standings, because you are comparing someone like Vancouver, who has 27 points in 20 games, which sounds awesome. It is awesome. And they're technically in second place, whereas LA, it looks in the standings that LA is in third because by points they are, but LA only has 25 points, 2 fewer than the Canucks, but they have 3 games in hand. And it goes without, I think naturally we think that LA is going to get more than 2 points in their next 3 games. Hopefully not, but maybe they will. So when we do this analysis, we have to be aware of the games played for sure. And then more importantly, probably look at points percentage. However, what the interesting, you're going to the game in that's awesome, Liam. That's great. Liam, not Liam. That's awesome, Liam. So here's the trick. Yeah. Kempner you can tell Kempner's a smart content creator because he basically said exactly what I was going to say. 76% of teams historically that are over the playoff line at American Thanksgiving make the playoffs. So you have a 3 out of 4 chance of making the playoffs. Now, with any percentage, and I don't, the stats I've seen, I don't know, Kempner, if you can shed any light on this. I don't know if they're so analytical that they actually sort by point percentage. I doubt it. I'm sure they just go by points, and over the course of time, not the same team has played. Like, Seattle's not going to have the most games played by Thanksgiving every single season. Ottawa's never going to have the fewest games like all the time. So I think they just go by points. Otherwise it'd be too crazy. Having said all that, 76% of the time, a team that's above the playoff bar at Thanksgiving makes the playoffs. 76% of the time. So 3 out of 4. Now, obviously, there are some exceptions, and there are the obvious ones where if you're a team hovering right at the wild card bar right now, either 1 or 2 points ahead or 1 or 2 points behind, obviously there's more chance that one of those teams will swap places, or you have a better chance of swapping places, getting above the playoff bar, falling below the playoff bar if you are closer to the playoff bar. That's intuitive. That's common sense. We know that teams go on runs. We know that teams go on winning streaks. We know that teams going on losing streaks. We just have to look at the St. Louis Blues from 4 years ago. They were actually last. I'm not sure in the whole league, but they were last in their division. Not just the American Thanksgiving. They were last in their division when the year ended, when the calendar year flipped. And then thanks to Jordan Binnington and others, maybe there's a coaching change. We know that they not only made the playoffs, they won the Stanley Cup. So I know a lot of people point to that. Well, anything can happen. All you got to do is get in, or look at the St. Louis Blues. Yeah, but you guys remember, that's the exception. That's not the rule. The rule, the trend is that 75% of teams that are above the playoff bar, 76% are in the playoffs by the end of the season. So let's keep that in mind. Let's keep those things in mind, then, that it's 76%. It's not 100%. That obviously the closer you are to the playoff bar, the better chance that you will go to the other side of that playoff bar. And then you do have teams like St. Louis who come out of the blue. And yeah, as Kempner just said, they were the exception and not the rule itself. So all those things, we, as a very, very smart Canucks community, need to keep that in mind. And before we look at the standings, I put a poll up right before I went live, and I said, where will the Canucks finish? And I only get 4 options. If I had 5 options, I'd go first, second, third, wild card, or out of the playoffs. But I only have 4 options on Twitter. And as much as I want them to finish first, and I'd love to be proven wrong, I'm not sure if the Canucks are going to beat out both Vegas and LA for first overall in the Pacific. But if they do, that's awesome. But of the 4 options I gave you, 38% of you are saying third in the Pacific, likely behind Vegas and LA, whatever order they are in. 31% of you are saying second in the Pacific, where they are right now by points. 27% say wild card spot, and 2% of you are saying miss the playoffs. And 2%, only 47 votes. Only one person said that then. So 98% of you are saying the Canucks will make the playoffs, and 69% of you are saying that it's going to be second or third. So let's think about that. All those numbers that I just threw at you right now, let's keep those in mind as we talk about where the Canucks might end up. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'll spend the most time on Vancouver, of course, but I'm going to look at all 4 divisions. So in the East, actually, let's do it like this way first before we look at wild card. In the East, Atlantic Division, Boston has already separated themselves as the cream of the crop. And remember, all these things, put a big asterisk beside it and say, we're only a quarter of the way through the season, and barely that. Actually, only Ottawa it's not Ottawa. Only Seattle has actually eclipsed the quarter pole with 21 games. Everyone else is 20 or fewer. But Boston, and I would say that, Boston is definitely the number 1 team there. And then you have 4 teams that are kind of battling right under them: Florida, Tampa, Toronto, and Detroit. So that's the next separator. And then Buffalo, Montreal, and Ottawa. Although Ottawa is actually, if they win all the games, imagine if they win the next 4, then that shoots them up to 24 points. So then they're up with this team. So let's say Buffalo and Montreal definitely in the lower tier, and then Ottawa, because they've only played 15 games. I think the jury is still out on Ottawa. In the Metro, obviously the Rangers have pulled away as the cream of that crop. And then you have, I'd say the Rangers and Carolina are really good teams. Sorry, Washington is a surprising team, but they're good. And Carolina is very good. Philly is surprising, but I think they're going to go drop down a little bit. So you got Philly, Islanders, and Pittsburgh. New Jersey is a team. I know Luke Hughes was missing for a lot. I think New Jersey is going to be a lot better than 500. And then Columbus absolutely stinks. You go to the Western Conference. Yeah, it's a dogfight up top with Dallas, Colorado, and Winnipeg right up top. Then St. Louis a little bit behind, but playing well, admittedly, as much as I don't like them. And then I don't see Arizona, Nashville, Minnesota, and especially Chicago doing anything. And then finally, our lovable division, we're only 3 points behind Vegas, but we're only 2 points up on LA, and they have 3 games in hand. But those 3 teams have separated themselves already. Then I think Seattle is hopefully not tomorrow, but they are playing a little bit better. Anaheim has lost the last 4. They're coming back to earth. Calgary, who knows what they are. Edmonton stinks, and San Jose stinks even more. So then you put it all together, and here's what the wild card. So this is, I think, what we got to pay attention to. In the East, yeah, it's weird to see Toronto in a wild card spot, but here's a perfect example. They have 22 points in 17 games, 647 points percentage. That is way better than the 3rd place team in their division, Tampa, with 23 points in 20 games. So Tampa has played 3 more games, and they only have 1 more point. All to say, I think all 4 of those teams are in the playoffs when all said and done, whatever order: Boston, Florida, Tampa, and Toronto. I do think the Rangers and Carolina make it. I think Washington might be able to continue this hot start, maybe. But of all these teams below, I think New Jersey is the one you have to look out for. And I see New Jersey making the playoffs as well. So I think New Jersey is the one team that's going to buck the trend this year. Is they're below the playoff bar, but I think they'll be above it, well above it, when the season ends. More importantly, let's get to the West. I think the 3 teams in the Central, I think those 3 are locks. I really do. Dallas and Colorado are too talented not to get there. And Winnipeg is, I think, playing over expectations, but they have enough great players in Hellebuyck, Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers to make it happen. So Morrissey is having a great season. In the Pacific, I do think it's going to be these 3 teams. I wouldn't have said this before the start of the season, but I think it will be these 3 teams battling. So let's talk about the wild card now for the West. I don't believe in Nashville, Minnesota, Chicago, and San Jose. Normally, I would say watch out for Edmonton, but I'm going to say I don't think we have to watch out for Edmonton. They only have 11 points. They are already 10 points out. That's a big gap, because it's not just, they just got to win 5 straight and now they're up to 21. Remember, they got to pass 6 other teams just to get to a wild card spot. So when the season is done, I don't think Anaheim's good enough. I don't think Arizona's good enough. St. Louis is playing well. So I'd put St. Louis as one of them. And who's going to take that last one? Is Seattle good enough? Yeah, they're at 21, but they've played 21 games. Everyone else is just one win away from matching them in terms of points percentage. So I actually don't know who the 8th team's going to be. It could be Calgary, actually, to be honest with you. If I had to bet between Seattle, Anaheim, Arizona, Calgary, Nashville, Minnesota, Edmonton, Chicago, and San Jose, I think Calgary is kind of too talented to be that far down, and they have Jacob Markstrom in net. They've got a good blue line. They played the Canucks really well when they beat us last Thursday. So I'm going to dare say that Calgary is the one that emerges. And remember, they're only 4 points behind Seattle with 2 games in hand. So all they got to do is win their next 2 games in hand, and they're tied with Seattle technically. So I'm going to say that the West turns out to be Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Vegas, Vancouver, LA. I do think it'll be St. Louis. And then I don't know. I just have a feeling that's going to be Calgary. So my hot takes are Calgary and New Jersey will make it. And then Seattle and Detroit will not make it. So that means I'm basically saying 14 of the 16 teams that are in right now will make it. That is more than 76%. That is 88%. So I could have probably switched out 2 more teams to get to my 76% quota, but that's what I'm thinking. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So I didn't even look